Welcome, everybody. Confessions of a GroupX Instructor podcast. We're here with Nicole again.
Hey,
Hi.
I'm so excited to be back. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming back. So, did you know that your episode is ranked in the top 5 of all time? All of our episodes. You're in the top 5, baby.
No, I didn't know that. Let's try to break it with this one.
Let's try to break the whole internet with it. Isn't that really cool? Because
Very.
I think people are so interested in nutrition and functional medicine and all the things that are right up your alley and wheelhouse. And I love it. I love that. So we are going to be recording today a two-part, kind of under the umbrella of cognition, brain health, neurodegenerative disease, but we're going to break up these 2 episodes for you with a part 1 where Nicole is going to teach us and talk to us about sleep and the circadian rhythm. That's part 1. Then she and I are going to pause, maybe take a little bathroom break, come back, powder our noses, and then we're going to record part 2, which under the same umbrella is going to be about nutrition and exercise and cognition. So first, we're going to learn about sleep and the circadian rhythm. But first, hi, tell us about you.
Okay, I am a certified holistic nutrition therapy master, which is a mouthful. Basically, I'm board certified in holistic nutrition, and what I do is I help my clients in ways to bring back their bodies into balance. Usually, when we have signs that are making us uncomfortable, maybe for instance, we're not sleeping well, maybe we're exercising, but we're gaining weight. We know that these are ways that the body is telling us that something is amiss, something's out of balance. So with what I do, I use nutrition, I use holistic lifestyle strategies to help coach my clients and help bring their bodies back into balance in like holistic ways. Just to kind of look at the whole, basically what holistic means is looking at the whole person, their lifestyle. What is it that they're doing, not just doing on a daily basis? What are they eating? What are their habits? What is their work? That sort of thing. So the whole person, what is bringing their body out of balance? And I use different strategies to help them feel better.
And we really share the same philosophies, and my sort of values and opinions about health and wellness align perfectly with Nicole's. She's just much smarter than me. No, it's true. No, it's true. This is like her wheelhouse, but on more of a surface level, like we are so aligned. We listen to the same sort of influences and resources and podcasts and books and stuff like that. So it's an honor to have her on the show. The last time she was here and did a show with me, what did we name that show? Do you remember?
It was like enjoy or embrace the journey. I think it was enjoy the journey.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, anyways, you were in your studio that day. Today you're like in a bedroom.
Yes, I'm at a beach house. I'm
Oh,
at a beach house.
you're at
Yeah,
the shore for 2
yeah,
months. Sure.
yep. Yeah. So a little secret about Ellen, if you guys don't know this, she doesn't really know what the shore is. But that's okay. I love her anyway. The shore is where I can't wait to go all year round. So from September to May, I'm looking forward to July. So really September to June. So July and August, I'm down the shore. You probably can hear it in my voice. I'm a Jersey girl. So that's where I am, the East Coast.
I thought it was a lake. I didn't understand. I didn't understand that it was like the whole ocean over there on that side of the country. And then like I also thought like she's over there, like Florida, come meet us in Florida. And she's like, that's not very close.
Convenient. Ellen and I met in person for the first time in Virginia years ago at DCAC. So I think that Ellen just figures we're on the East Coast, Virginia's on the East Coast, Florida's on the East Coast. What is the difference? So I just said that's like for her in Oregon, like driving on down to Mexico. I don't know what the distance is, but for me to drive to Florida would be approximately 17 hours.
Yeah.
Me to drive to Virginia, it's 3 hours. Not that big a deal.
Yeah, I don't know. This is not a part of my brain that God decided to develop. I don't understand geography. No, I don't. It just doesn't compute at all. I'm the kind of person that will get lost like inside anywhere, like I can be in a building and then not know. If you asked me to point to where the parking lot is, I wouldn't even know where the car was parked. I know. Or like if I go into like a doctor's office, and they make you turn like a few times, I'm like, oh, like,
Oh, no.
pay attention, pay attention. I'm not going to be able to find my way out to the lobby. I have to follow the exit sign. Oh, but speaking of going to the doctor, I guess really that's just to kind of bring it back. Nicole's philosophy, without putting words in her mouth, is like, let's treat people with food and whole food and exercise and sleep, and like let's treat people holistically, to use the word she used, rather than treating symptoms with medications.
Right. So, and just Ellen can use whatever words she wants, but because I am not a doctor, I cannot use the word treat. So I use address the body's areas that are out of balance. But yeah, so instead of, we do need medicine for certain things, acute situations. If you break your arm, me telling you to take some, basil tea is not going to help heal your arm. I mean, it'll help heal it a little bit, but you need to go to a doctor if you broke your arm. So I address imbalances of the body, and I look at, mainly diet, but also lifestyle things like exercise and sleep, which we'll be talking about.
Yes, we will be. And then remind me when we wrap up part 1 to talk about how you've helped me, because the first time we podcast about it, I didn't totally remember. I like remembered it slightly incorrectly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so don't let me forget to do that. It'll be like a little
I'll try to remind you. I don't know.
Yeah. So I would love to just dive in and have you take it away. And I don't know what you have prepared, but I don't know about the circadian rhythm. I don't even know if I'm saying it correctly, or I certainly had trouble spelling it when I typed the notes. So talk to us about.
Okay. Sounds like you are saying circadian rhythm correctly. All living things have a circadian rhythm. It basically refers to your natural cycles that go through a 24-hour time period. Human beings have a specific sleep-wake cycle. So, and it goes by certain, our bodies get different signals from our environment of what hormones to release. So it's, even though the hormones are created inside of us and released inside of us in order for these messages to take place into different organs in our body, a lot of when it comes to circadian rhythm, the cues are actually coming from outside of the body. They're coming from the environment, the temperature, and the light. So basically, we have a lot of hormones, that all hormones give us messages and are basically driving our actions. But when it comes to circadian rhythm, the two main hormones in action are cortisol and melatonin. So, and most people have heard of them both, probably. Most people have a negative connotation, I would say, about cortisol, but cortisol is a very necessary, if we were going to rank hormones, probably one of the most important hormones that we have. And cortisol and melatonin, when it comes to the sleep-wake cycle, are supposed to work kind of in opposition. So when you wake up, your cortisol should be at its highest in the day. And it should, as the day goes on, start to decrease. Now, of course, we've heard a lot about cortisol in regards to stress. So that's where cortisol can throw us out of balance, and our cortisol is going to be too high if we're highly stressed throughout the day. Our cortisol, instead of decreasing, we might find if we were to get a test, a functional test would show that maybe your cortisol is actually high at 4 p.m. It should actually start to be coming down. And melatonin does the opposite. Melatonin is lowest in the morning when cortisol should be at its highest, and melatonin should peak in the evening. Actually, its actual peak is between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So it's not just about the amount of hours you're sleeping. It is when you can get to sleep is when you're going to have your best quality sleep, is when that melatonin is at its highest. And everybody's different, but it's going to peak somewhere between 10 and 2, which is why you probably have noticed in yourself that that first bit of sleep, if you're somebody that wakes up at some point in the night, your first bit of sleep is the most solid. One of the reasons is melatonin. Melatonin being high and cortisol being low. Those two things should be true at once.
Are they directly proportional, like exact directly, or are they just supposed to be directly proportional?
I don't think it's a direct proportion, but as one goes down,
Okay.
the other.
Okay. They do a
Yeah.
dance. They do a dance.
They do a dance. Yep. And so you can imagine too that if you're a shift worker, you might be a little bit thrown off.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
Yeah, you can't really fool Mother Nature in such a way. So what happens is we still have these cycles, but if you're a shift worker, you're trying to get your sleep at another time, which is not congruent with your own human body clock. And so they have found that shift work is actually a type 2 carcinogen.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, your risk factors for all kinds of diseases and cancers increase dramatically if you do shift work for depending upon the amount of years. Like if I was going to recommend, if I had a client that was working a shift, I mean, people have to work, they have to get paid, right? I would try to recommend that person to try to shift their hours after like 5 years, like no more than 5 years of shift work would be my recommendation for optimal health and longevity, because you will end up sacrificing your health over no matter how many hours. If you're sleeping 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. and that's just real quick, that's only 6 hours as it is. Even if that's what you're doing and you're saying it's solid, it's not congruent with human nature, evolution, and the hormonal releases that we need for optimal health.
Do you wake up in the middle of the night?
I have been, as I've been getting into menopause. I didn't used to, but I have been. So there are some supplements that can help. But I always recommend like test, don't guess, because like for me, it's as I'm going through menopause.
Yeah.
For other people, they've been waking up in the middle of the night since their 30s. So what's their issue versus my issue are two different things. So I've just noticed it as I'm entering menopause, and it's probably due to the difference in progesterone versus estrogen. Like when your progesterone's too low, you're going to not sleep as well. But again, it's on my list of things to do that hormone test for myself. But that's something that I do. I order hormone testing for my clients.
How do you feel about melatonin as a supplement? I don't take it. I've heard some, I mean, I don't know. What do you think about melatonin as a supplement?
Again, it can be helpful, but only if melatonin is the issue. Right? If the issue is progesterone or the issue is stress and the issue isn't your melatonin production. I mean, melatonin production can be influenced because of stress, because you're producing too much cortisol and then your melatonin can't come up. So that could be an issue. So I would always recommend like stress mitigation techniques. If people are having trouble, like falling asleep and staying asleep are generally two different things. But if you have problems with either one of those things, I would highly recommend some stress mitigation practices involving meditation, deep breathing, relaxing music. If you don't have an exercise practice already, which I know we're going to get to that in part 2, but this is specifically in for stress reduction and lifestyle. Most people that come to me have found me somehow through exercise anyway, so it's not usually a conversation that I have. But if I have, I always address it with people that we need to be exercising, like no matter what your health concern is.
Yes.
So for some people,
Well, I know
exercise, like that could be a concern.
I know that we're going to talk about exercise in part 2, but as it relates to sleep and circadian rhythm, what about when people exercise later in the evening and complain about having difficulty sleeping? Is that related to cortisol and melatonin?
It's actually probably related to body temperature. It
Okay.
could also be related to cortisol. Your cortisol can be elevated because exercise is a stress on the body, but it's a good stress. So if you have a regular habit of exercising at night, it's probably not cortisol. It's probably an elevation in body temperature. Your body temperature has to decrease to a certain degree in order for your heart rate to decrease. Like all these things have to kind of slow down. So if you're a little bit overheated or hot in any way, chances are you're going to have trouble sleeping or you're going to wake up hot. So exercising at night can be an issue for people. I don't recommend, if that's when they do it, if that's the only time they can do it, then I say, then do it. But you need to find like some sort of relaxation practice to implement some time between your exercise and sleep. The other thing that can happen if you exercise late is you might be eating late. You might be eating after you exercise. And then we're really even pushing back our bedtime more because digestion is one of the top priorities of the body, as is sleep. Your body can't do them both at once and doesn't do either one of them well if they're struggling. So notice that if you have a tough time sleeping, like try to make connections. That's another thing I help my clients do, make connections. If you have trouble sleeping, you might have eaten a big meal before bed.
Oh my goodness. Wait, can I talk to you about my personal sleep hygiene?
Sure. Yeah.
I think I'm a pretty good sleeper. Like it's a high level priority in my life. It's as important to me as getting exercise, maybe more. Like if I had to choose between getting a great workout and a great night's sleep, I would pick a great night's sleep. I still, there's still room for improvement, and that matters to me. So I'm excited to like learn maybe some tips and tricks from you today. But I do think, let's see, I try to always get 8 hours, and I stay up really late at night. I don't know if that matters. It might, because you
talked about the melatonin
you were
peak
saying
between 10 and 2.
Yeah, so I usually go to bed at like 1 or 2. And depending on the morning, I like to work out at noon. I'm like a nooner girl. There are some mornings that I can sleep as late as 8 or 9, and once in a blue moon 10. And I'm going to bed really between midnight and 2 a.m. every night. I have workaholic. I'm a workaholic, so, and I run anxious, and I'm type A. So I have a hard time like shutting down the brain and relaxing. I usually think I'm gonna have trouble falling asleep, but then I don't. So I usually am able to fall asleep within 15 minutes of lying down. I'm always worried, like, oh, I'm so anxious. I'm so anxious about, I'm borrowing all of tomorrow's troubles already. How am I gonna fall asleep? But then I usually do. So I fall asleep pretty good. I do tend to wake up once a night, 3 or 4 in the morning. I don't think it's because of hormones, but maybe they play a part. It's my bladder. I always have to pee. remember, that's something you helped me with, is I have a cranky, shy bladder. I'm a shy, irritable, pain in the butt bladder. So I think it's small and it's shy. It doesn't like to pee. It's hard for me to pee. It's hard for me to relax my pelvic floor. I think I have a hypertonic pelvic floor and issues like that. So anyway, and that was one of my first conversations with Nicole. That's what we talked about on the last episode, is the doctors were just giving me fistfuls for 15 years of antibiotics to treat all this bladder issues. And I learned I didn't need them at all. I didn't need those antibiotics that were wrecking my gut health. I didn't need them at all. This is not what I needed to work on my bladder. So anyway, sometimes I wake up to pee and then I can usually fall back asleep. I think I am trying to flirt with maybe perimenopause. I still get all my periods, but I do feel like hormone surges where I feel uncomfortable and like the whole, like I don't have sweats. It's not like a hot flash? I mean, maybe it is, and it's just different in me. I don't sweat and it's not a flash. It's not there and gone. It's just like a whole entire night of sleep. It feels like it's an inferno. I feel like I'm an inferno. Like, I just feel like I'm an inferno. Like I'm spewing BTUs. And those nights happen sometimes, and sometimes with my menstrual cycle, which I still have. And so I don't know what's going on there, but
That could be a little like premonition of what maybe a hot flash might feel like for you. So it might just be, I would say, like you may be, even if your cycle's regular still, you might just be, flirting with menopause, because I think we're about
I think so.
7 to 5 years difference. I'm 53. I know you've said your age.
I'm 49.
Oh, okay. So 4 years difference. So
Yeah, I'm at the
yeah.
age. I just haven't really noticed it kicking in yet. But so, sleep. So I didn't mean to hijack you. So back to what you were saying about what is
Well, how I helped you was the probiotic with was
no,
that
well, that's what I was gonna say at the end. You want me to tell you that now?
did I ruin it already? Okay. No, if you want to wait, we can
Well, she
wait.
helped me poop better. She helped me poop better.
Oh, wow. Well,
That's what it was about. What?
that's what I do.
Yeah,
That's what I
that's
should
what you
do with
do.
my
Because
Bible, actually.
people, here we're talking about sleep and now we're talking about poop, but literally, like, that says a lot about your health, is what you're like, are you having normal poop? If you have normal, regular poop, that's a very good indication that you're healthy. And if you're not, because you're constipated or you have chronic diarrhea, it's a good indication that there's something wrong in your gut. And that's what I couldn't remember. I thought our first conversation where you first helped me was about bladder, but it was actually about poop. But yeah, you fixed me. You fixed me. You fixed
And
me.
I have to fix my bio and just say, I have to just I help people poop better. Like, that's what I do. So good. Because it's always a subject of with me and my clients. It's always a subject.
Can we do a part 3? Let's do a part 3 about healthy poop.
It's very important for your health. Like, that is a key marker of how your body is doing. So, do you want me to go into a few strategies for people to help them sleep better? Like, what the body really needs for good sleep? Like, because people may think, like, I've talked to friends who don't have good sleep and they're like, well, I can't control it. Like, it does feel a little bit out of our control, but there's certain things to help your circadian rhythm if it becomes dysregulated in some way.
Absolutely. I want you to completely take it away. I want to hear all your tips and tricks about sleeping. And when you refer to the circadian rhythm, just so I understand the word correctly, you just mean our natural, the shifts in our hormones between cortisol and melatonin that naturally occur within 24 hours. That's just what that term means. And does it have anything to do with REM, or is that different?
Well, it's different than circadian rhythm. REM is a sleep cycle. Circadian rhythm is your general that's like a body clock throughout a 24-hour day.
Before you dive in, is it true that people have different circadian rhythms? Like, is it true? Like, could I naturally be a night owl? Because I've always felt like I like to stay up late. and I like to sleep in, and I have great energy around, 10 a.m., noon. Those are my favorite times to lead group exercise classes. Whereas some people are like up at 4:30 and they like to go to bed at 8:30 at night and they have great energy at 6 a.m. Is it true that like maybe just genetically or naturally or biologically we're different, or is that conditioned?
A little bit of both, but the circadian rhythm for human beings is the same in that approximate 24-hour period. What does definitely change is throughout our lives, the time of day that we have more energy. Like infants have a totally dysregulated circadian rhythm, which you can imagine because you've had an infant before, so you've experienced that.
Mhm.
Children have a very good, solid like circadian rhythm as far as a very good, like when they are tired, they will sleep and they have a good, like their wake up cycle is good. Like their hormones are very well regulated when we're children. Prepubescent, not so much. They are definitely night owls and they are dragging ass through the day. So it changes as we change, but there's also variations within humans, of course. So like your energy is high between 10 and 12. Yes, it's conditioned because your whole cycle, the way you set up is like how you feel best, right? So you're up until 12 or 1 at night. So you're going to be higher energy. Like that's probably when your cortisol shoots up is probably around 10 a.m. Part of it's conditioned, but part of it is just how you are. If you've always been like that, that's just you. And it's not wrong. There's always going to be variations within people. It's not for anyone. We are not cookie cutters. But there's always a little bit of how we live our life and how we kind of set up our bodies to feel best within our lifestyle, right? Like, because you might be more creative at 11 p.m. So you're going to do something at night instead of me. I would be like, I'm not going to do this now. I'm going to go to bed, and when I wake up, I'm going to do it. So like you make sure that you then, like, I have to make sure I then have time before whatever else it is. So you set up your
Yeah.
life to work for your energy, and everybody's a little bit different that way, I would say.
Okay, take us through your tips on how we can optimize sleep and how that maybe relates to cognition or brain health, which we're also kind of talking.
Yeah, so right, because the brain health was really the thing that was supposed to be driving this. But basically, in a nutshell, if you're not sleeping well, your brain, your other organs, all our organs detoxify on their own throughout the day, 24/7.
Mm.
The brain is the only organ that cannot detoxify while you are awake. You have to be sleeping for the brain to get rid of its junk. So that's how brain and circadian rhythm are connected. And I'll get to REM also because you touched on REM. So there's stuff that builds up in the brain, just like in any of our organ systems, toxins that build up in the brain. And if you don't sleep, the brain can't get rid of them. And if you don't reach certain stages of sleep, there's certain times that the brain is really working to get rid of the gunk. And then there's certain times in our sleep cycle that the brain is actually consolidating memory. That's why our memory will not be great if we've gone on years without sleeping, even if it's just, even in the short term, if you don't sleep good for a couple nights, you're going to feel off. I just wanted to touch on the REM real quick. REM sleep, we basically do 90-minute cycles of what's called REM and non-REM, and we should hit several of those cycles a night. 3, 4, 5. I mean, obviously, if you're counting 90-minute cycles REM and maybe an hour to 90-minute cycle of non-REM, so you got to get a few of those because of what's going on in the brain during that time. So if you're not sleeping for, X amount of hours, you're not going to hit the necessary cycles for your brain.
And is REM is where we have that, what is it? What does it stand for again?
Rapid eye movement.
Rapid eye movement. Okay.
That is the only time that dreams are taking place.
No.
And you are absolutely paralyzed
You are
while you are in REM sleep.
that,
And if anyone has experienced sleep paralysis,
Uh-huh.
I've experienced it. It's terrifying.
Yes. I think I know
You
what you mean, where you're dreaming and you just cannot move in your dream.
correct. And
Yes, I've
you're
had that
trying to
happen multiple
scream
times.
and you're trying to scream and you can't scream.
It,
So, but you're awake. You're awake, but
oh,
you feel like you're sleeping. You're still dreaming because you're actually in REM, but you've woken up.
I don't know if I've woken up, but multiple times in my life, I've been in a dream where I'm like trying to run away from the bad guy and I can't. It
Yeah,
is,
you could be on the verge. You could be right just about waking up. But if you are, oh, there's a
I,
little thumbs up. But yeah, if you only dream in REM sleep and you are paralyzed in
so
REM sleep.
what does it mean if people are like, I rarely do remember any type of dream behavior. Um, does that mean that I'm not experiencing dreams in REM or I'm just, what is it? Is it an indication negative or like that for people that don't, because I know people that remember their dreams every single night.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't know the answer to that question. It's a great question. I do think that I had heard it did mean something and it was negative if you couldn't remember your dreams, but I just am I'm not remembering what it meant if you don't
It's funny.
remember your
I
dreams.
seem to remember dreams very, very rarely, and it's usually when I'm in an unusual sleep environment. Like if I'm sleeping at a hotel, I'll tend to have dreams that I remember that night. And then or if for some reason I'm able to have a day where I sleep till 10 a.m. or something, like I get like 9 or 10 hours of sleep, I'll tend to remember dreams. So sometimes I sort of associate it with not typical sleep. In my typical sleep, I don't remember my dreams. But if it's something unusual, whether shorter sleep hours, different bed, different place, um, longer sleep, then I seem to have a dream as I'm waking up that I recall.
Yeah, that's interesting. I very rarely remember my dreams as well. Sometimes I do. I haven't made the connection that of what it is, but
I know you just got into REM, but I wanted to back up to something that you were saying because I think it's so critically important to what we're talking about today. And I just want to make sure I'm saying it back correctly. So our other organs are what? Heart, lungs, like skin, like all of our
heart,
other organs,
heart, lungs, skin, liver, kidney, bladder,
they
uterus,
detoxify,
prostate.
they take care of themselves in their 24-hour cycles. But the brain does not. It has to have sleep to become clean, to clean the clog, clear the pipes. Like, I don't know if you told me this analogy or if I heard it elsewhere. But I've heard like the comparison to like Disneyland. Like, did you tell me this analogy about how like the park at night has this whole crew that needs to come in and get it all reset for the next day? All these massive operations.
That's a great analogy. It wasn't mine, but
It
I
was
like it.
such a good analogy, and it was like
Yeah.
super detailed about what goes on at an amusement park of that magnitude to reset it so that it can function fully the next day. And that happens at night. That's the night, that's the sleep cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's great. That's a great analogy. Yeah. And I mean, you also may know this too. Sleep is, of course, important for our immune system. And so that's the reason why when I mentioned that shift work is a type 2 carcinogen, cancer is a severe dysregulation of your immune system. Something has gone wrong there with your immune system. So that kind of makes sense because our immune system is something that if we don't get a lot of sleep, we end up, you'll also see like, when do people get sick a lot? Like it's, around Christmas time, like high stress time, not sleeping great, yeah. So the sleep is,
Heartaches, breakups, divorces,
mhm.
devastation in our lives can affect our ability to sleep and stay asleep and fall asleep and all of that stuff. And I know you just mentioned uh cancer and the dysregulation to the immune system, and but also you and I were talking on the phone yesterday or the day before or whenever about Alzheimer's and neurodegenerative disease and cognitive decline and mild cognitive impairment, which is how it starts often when someone is in their like 30s and 40s, symptoms begin. And I worry about, that's something that I am worried about because of my family history of Alzheimer's and dementia. So now my grandfather died of Alzheimer's and my father has been diagnosed recently with
I'm
Alzheimer's.
sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes, it's terrible. And so I worry about that. And I know we're going to talk about exercise in part 2, but I think that shutting down of the amusement park, cleaning the park, resetting everything so it can function the next day has got to be one of the best things we can do to prevent neurodegenerative decline and that beta amyloid protein and plaque buildup, and it's how we flush the pipes, which is why it's so important to me.
Yeah, and so that you can imagine that over time, because those amyloid plaques, those are part of the toxins that build up that the brain has to work on clearing out while you're sleeping, and that's one of the main reasons why we need to prioritize our sleep for our optimal health, brain function. The brain, I meant to mention this earlier, but I'll mention it now. The brain is only 2% of our body's mass, and it is a 20% caloric user.
Whoa, hold the phones. It's only 2% of our full body's mass, but it's a 20%. I have heard that when you're thinking a lot, it's like it takes a ton of glycogen and energy. Because, sometimes I'll lead an 8-hour training and I'm just like, blah, 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 like there's nothing left. All my brain cells are gone.
Exactly.
So yes. Why is it so disproportionate?
Well,
why does it take so much energy?
It needs a lot of energy to think and if you kind of think about, which is funny that I'm saying, like, think about all the neuronal activity that, like, I'm moving my hands, I'm an Italian, but I'm not thinking about moving my hands. Think about how fast all our movements have to go, and all that is like, plus there's so many chemical reactions that are going on in milliseconds of a moment. So that's why the energy is so big for the brain. So 20% of your caloric expenditure is spent here, while it only takes up 2% of your body.
You know what else? People on the show, listeners, know that I come from eating disorder background. When I was in the thick of it and in the throes of an eating disorder, I want to tell you, I had not a brain cell in my head. I could not formulate a thought. I was like, I didn't even remember my name. There was like no brain activity because I wasn't eating enough food.
Correct. Yeah.
Also, I just want to say something else, and I know you're going to dive into tips and then we can wrap up part 1, but
yeah.
I feel like our culture and our society, and I was absolutely guilty of this too. This whole, like, you can sleep when you're dead philosophy as being like, like implying that you're living life to its fullest if you deprioritize sleep is the biggest lie in our culture. And it's like, one thing I would like to do with this episode is, of course, we're probably preaching to the choir with a bunch of group fitness professionals, but to make sexy the idea of getting as much sleep as you can. Like, it should be not like, oh, I'm wasting my life away because I stayed in bed. It should be like something that we're really proud of. Like, it should be the sexy thing and the way we talk. Like, I'm going to sleep now because I'm going to be smart when I'm old. Like,
exactly. You will also be able to continue to learn.
Yeah.
The better you could sleep now, the longer you'll be able to learn, because there's never an age that we can't grow and we can't learn. But yes, I mean, if you want to be dead sooner, then keep the mantra of you'll sleep when you're dead.
Dead sooner, or just brain dead sooner. I mean, Nicole and I listen to such similar influences in people and podcasters and stuff like that, but like they're one of the things that they commonly talk about is that today our lifespan is actually quite long, but our health span is shorter than ever, which means we are living in our elder years this I'm using it in a huge generality, just this terrible quality of life. And really what we're saying to you today is the best thing you can do for that portion is what we're talking about in part 1 and in part 2 of this cognition series.
Yeah,
Okay.
now we first talked about this on Sunday to have this discussion about cognition, which, well, Sunday, when we're recording this, it's Thursday, it's all good. But speaking of other
The shore, the lake, whatever.
wherever we are, but Sean Stevenson is doing this week Alzheimer's special, like focusing on Alzheimer's this week. So just kind of funny that was what we
It is funny.
already.
He's probably copying us.
I think he is.
I mean,
Obviously,
he did leave you a voice memo once.
he did. I think it might be.
He's basically obsessed with you.
Oh, he's completely obsessed with me. So if he knew what was on my calendar, he was probably listening in on our conversation.
He probably is, he probably has like investigators out. He's obsessed with it.
Obviously, clearly.
Anyway, if you don't know who Sean Stevenson is, he's one of our favorite podcasters who talks about topics like this all the time.
Yeah. He got me into this.
And he's not hard on the eyes. That's all I'm saying.
No, he's not hard on the eyes or the ears. So yeah, he got me into this holistic nutrition thing, what he was doing. So if you do have a dysregulated circadian rhythm or sleep is an issue for you, the brain loves consistency in all ways. Anyone who is listening to this probably knows that your brain likes consistency. So keep to a regular schedule daily, whatever your schedule is that works for you, keep to it. Eating the same time, like especially like, meals at the same time, try to go to bed at the same time every day. Sleep in a supportive environment that is cool and dark and a comfortable mattress.
Cool. Cool and dark.
Cool and dark. Mm-hmm. You should go outside. I know you're in Oregon, so people go outside all the time there. That's like a thing. That's like a religion out there. Right? But so you should go outside 10 minutes at least every day. Your eyes have information for your brain. And some of that information comes in the form of a photon from the sun. So it's really important. That helps set your body clock, actually. Being outside.
I've heard like Huberman, how he was like ophthalmologist, blah, blah, blah. I've heard him talk about that too. And a lot of the guys we listen to, they say like go outside in the morning, like just drink your coffee outside or anyway, carry on.
Yeah, that's really important. Like you said, go outside in the morning is best. Avoid naps late in the day. Because if you're having trouble sleeping, avoid naps late in the day. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about exercise, but exercise each day. It does help your sleep. Avoid nicotine, caffeine, and alcohol. These are stimulants. We think that alcohol helps us sleep. It does not. It keeps you from the cycles that you need. So it doesn't allow you to get into the REM. If it does, you're not in REM for long enough. It inhibits you from reaching deep sleep. So if you're going to have alcohol, make sure you do. I'm not recommending you day drink. I'm just saying have it earlier. Don't have it within like an hour of bedtime. Like have it earlier. One drink if you must. Shut down screens at least an hour before bed. Blue light can also be so blue light can disrupt that melatonin production. A blue light exposure is directly related to a decrease in melatonin production. So that doesn't mean don't expose yourself to blue light ever. It means you shouldn't be exposed at night. Your phone and your computers have settings on them that you can take the blue light out. So for instance, I take the blue light out of my phone from 6 p.m. until 7 a.m. Go into settings.
I think I've done that on my phone. We can do that on our computers too.
Yes.
Okay, wait, Okay, can I look right now?
Sure, you can look right now, but I
Tell
don't know
me,
that I
you
set
don't
you
know
there.
exactly the steps? Okay,
Uh, but when you go into settings, I would say the first place I would look would maybe be brightness
yes, true
or
tone, night
display.
shift, night shift?
There you are. Let's see what night shift says.
I have it scheduled from 10 PM into, you're right. I have it scheduled from 10 PM to 7 AM. That's probably not good.
Right. And then we can maybe see right there where you asked me if it was like conditioned about what your hours
Yeah,
are. Right. That's a part of conditioning there where you're not taking the blue light out until 10. If you take it out earlier, you might find you get tired sooner.
there's a default where you can click sunset to sunrise.
That's also good. I didn't know that.
Just switching it to that right now. Okay.
That's great. I'm
Okay.
going to do that when we get off. I'm going to do that. That's
Okay.
probably like an
So
update
blue
that I did.
light, probably, so that we didn't know about. So blue light disrupts melatonin. Alcohol disrupts melatonin. Okay.
Yeah, well, alcohol disrupts anything. Um, I have a saying that there is nothing that you do in the course of the day that a good night's sleep doesn't help you do better. And there's nothing that you do in life that alcohol would help you do better.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's, some people would say something like snarky to that, like maybe, meeting somebody,
Oh, right.
getting rid of jitters, like, yeah, to a
Like
degree, you could,
it's a social lubricant.
right, like you could have a drink to help you with that. But beyond that, alcohol's not helping you with anything. Like there's nothing. So yeah,
Plus it
alcohol.
crosses the blood-brain barrier.
Yeah, and I mean it's a toxin throughout the whole body, and is very hard on the liver because the liver has to deal with the toxins the most. So, and for every 15 minutes that we are exposed to blue light, the production of melatonin is decreased to a directly related to that exposure. So those were the tips that I had, but I do have a challenge. Wait a minute. I have a challenge for you because I just wrote down those tips. So if you have that's like basically sleep hygiene, good sleep
Yes,
hygiene.
yes.
So identify for yourself like an unhealthy sleep habit in your own life.
I already
Think
have.
about,
Are you asking our audience to do this? This is the audience
yes,
homework. Okay.
yeah, yeah, that's the audience's homework. So challenge, identify an unhealthy sleep habit in your own life, write it down and work to improve upon it.
Okay. I know what I have two. And I'm like I'm a pretty good sleeper. Like I feel like I get more sleep than most of my friends do. Um and I feel like it seems like it's a big priority in my, it's something I really will I really prioritize it. So like I'd rather, if it comes to like putting on a full face of makeup like I did today because we had that big special workout that I forgot to tell you about, if it comes to like having time to get ready to look pretty in the morning or sleep longer, I will sleep longer. Like it's just, I do prioritize it, but for me, it's definitely the blue light and alcohol. I do tend to be on my phone while I'm in bed, both at night and in the morning. And I know that like exposing, I own and operate a big business. And so I have this like, oh, I need to check my email the first thing when I wake up. And like, I know it would be better for me to go outside, let my eyes see, be exposed to the sun and check my email after that, but I just never do. So that's one. And then, I love me some red wine. So, but I don't eat, it's funny, you were talking about food. I want to circle back to that because I think this is an area where a lot of people struggle. And I've definitely been one of them, less at this age and stage of my life, but eating, I used to kind of feel like, oh, if I like to eat, I enjoy food and I enjoy snacks like nuts and grapes or whatever. And I, would like to snack at night. And I thought like having a full belly would help me sleep better. And you're right, it just doesn't. And like, I noticed sometimes I started paying attention, like you said, pay attention to your body more. I started paying attention and being like, when I wake up in the morning and it still feels like there's food that is like not digested, that feels gross. I do not like that feeling. And like, I was able to like figure that out about myself. Like, this doesn't feel good. It is not worth it. I would rather go to sleep with like an empty feeling stomach. That's okay. That's okay. It actually feels great to wake up and like be hungry for food.
Right. And so what probably happens when your body's feeling like that, either I mean, sometimes we just eat stuff that we don't normally eat, so our body's having trouble with it anyway. But the other thing is, if you go to sleep with like a full stomach and you wake up and you feel like you've got a rock in there, then your food really just didn't digest well because you went to bed too close to eating.
Mhm. Yeah. Those are great tips and great homework.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
are we ready for confession?
We are. This is funny because somebody, the first time I was on, I blasted, which I will again, to all humans living and unliving, that I was on a podcast. So anyway, somebody who remembered a story that I had told another time said, your confession should have been blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my gosh, that should have been my confession. So you know about this, but you might have forgotten. And you were a supervisor, like a GroupX supervisor, right? So you've experienced people who do this. One year when there was a new,
I know. I know.
and I'm sure anybody listening that's been a GroupX instructor has done this, but when it is you, it is absolutely mortifying and horrifying and your worst day ever. So in 2023, I had a new class being put on the calendar, but my supervisor and I maybe discussed it in November. Just a class, it wasn't a new format to me. It was just a new day, time in January of the new year. Fine. January 2nd comes and I'm the type of person, and probably a lot of you GroupX people are, if you're not there 10 minutes early, you are late.
Mhm.
But my supervisor texted me at 8:30 on this Tuesday morning, and I was sitting, minding my own business, enjoying my cup of coffee without a real care in the world. And she's like, are you on your way? And even then, it was so not on my radar that my first instinct was, on my way where? Is this for me? And then I kind of like did a little deeper thought, and I'm like, oh my, I forgot to go to class. I forgot to go to class. I had to call her up, and I was like, oh my gosh, she was very cool about it. She was like, it happens. It happens. You know that you've probably been a sub and maybe forgot to go, or I've done this also where two people show up. Like I've had a
Yes.
sub.
It's much better for two people to show up. Much better.
Much better for two people to show up than no one show up. So no one was there. Like no one was there to teach. And so the next time it was that class, that next week, I was like, I said to them, I'm like, did you ever forget to go to work? Like I forgot to go to work.
Did you just say, I'm so sorry? What were
Absolutely.
you just like die?
I died. I mean, I told them I died many deaths. I mean, I told the story all week to all my classes. Like I was looking over my shoulder all week that week. Like, am I supposed to be somewhere else?
It totally happens. I have seen it. I've seen it happen. You're right. I've only seen it happen, not to make you feel worse about yourself. I've only seen it happen with the subbing situation because but this is similar because it wasn't part of your routine yet. But
Right.
it does happen, I would say like every other year, like it seems like within a couple of year time span, a sub will forget to show up because it's not on their calendar, but they feel so bad that I just want to make them feel a little better. Like I don't feel like being punitive with these people because because they are giving themselves so much punishment. They are beating themselves up so much. Like you said, they're dying a million deaths. They
That's
just,
exactly how my supervisor was. Like, she was not going to make me feel any worse. So
no,
she just was like, don't worry about it. It happens. It's
it
okay.
does happen. I guarantee you it's happened to pretty much everybody listening.
Horrifying.
Okay. Well, thank you all for tuning in to part 1 of our umbrella theme of cognition, learning about sleep and the circadian rhythm. I love this episode already, and I think it's going to make my life just that much better. So tune back in next week to hear about exercise and nutrition and how that affects brain health. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks for having me, Ellen.